The year is 2022. It felt inevitable that the world we once cherished fell apart. It started after the declaration of the Eurasian Union, in spite of the mountain of corpses. Despite the cheering crowds, the wars with the post-Soviet republics were far from the quick victory promised, but rather years of brutal wars of attrition. Though a power on the decline, the Eurasian Union's cavalry disregard for other nations' sovereignty led to a grand European federation being fast-tracked. With the creation of a united European army, NATO is no longer reliant on the United States of America, who has grown ever more distracted in the Pacific in an informal Second Cold War against the People's Republic of China. In pursuit of their goal, the Americans formed a Pacific Treaty Organization of sorts, with the Pacific nations including Japan, India, and Australia. The coupling was never truly achieved, but the Pacific has been mired by the crested wave, and Europe has been divided by the steel curtain. Despite what the warhawks and the pundits would like you to believe, it was never the intention of either the forces of democracy nor autocracy to start the Third World War. Unfortunately, accidents happen all the time. No one can really recall what started the final catastrophe, but the Eurasian Union and the European Federation were engulfed by the fires of the cataclysmic war. NATO joining the fray soon after. For the first time in history, two nuclear states were at war, though neither launched a nuclear strike, for they still held on to the idea of mutually assured destruction. Although nuclear weapons were not used, the world still saw a level of destruction never seen before, as the global economy imploded, not helped by the fact that the Eurasian Union was being supplied by China. Once the tide of the war shifted heavily in the West's favor, China occupying Siberia's resources in all but name, and the war reached the Russian heartland, they were left with only the ultimate deterrent and demanded the West withdraw or face a nuclear response. In spite of this, they believed the Eurasians were bluffing and held firm. However, in 2018, one nuclear war later, 9 billion human lives were lost. The year is 2081, the beginning of the Ashen Age. Nothing could prepare us for the end of human civilization, and the shadow of nuclear trauma enveloped Earth in a nuclear winter. The global population was gutted, civilization was lost, and the last bastions of humanity were imprisoned in the very bunkers they themselves constructed. Humanity was thrown back into the medieval ages, and history was merely a flimsy imitation of the past. It seemed that humanity has fallen to rock bottom, and it seems impossible to ever rise again, even as the nuclear skies descended. However, not all hope was quite yet lost. You see, in the twilight years of the Second Cold War between America and China, sometime around 2070, there was a conference in Geneva held by scientists from the European Federation, the Eurasian Union, and the Central African Federation, detailing plans to establish a compilation of all human knowledge in the event of a nuclear war. Afterwards, this quote-unquote foundation would be able to re-establish an international organization and restore global stability. In the subsequent conferences, the locations of the foundations were said to be placed in Geneva, Luxembourg City, N'Djamena, Kizil, and Monrovia. The foundations were set back after the Eurasian Union expelled the foundation from Kizil prior to the Third World War. To make matters worse, the foundation in Luxembourg City and N'Djamena were destroyed by the onset of nuclear war and swallowed by the vastness of the Sahara respectively. In Geneva, the Western European Foundation emerged from the bunker complex around 2362 with their quote-unquote master list in hand. They swept through the plains of what was once France and linked up with the ruins of Luxembourg City. The Western European Foundation eventually encountered warlord states in southern and eastern Europe, sending envoys with the intentions of uplifting humanity's technology. Despite this, they lacked the industrial complexes necessary to recreate complex amenities and weapons from the modern age, settling around the 1900s. Once the Western European Foundation rebuilt their navy, they explored southwards and reunited with the Foundation of Monrovia. At this point, the two foundations united to form the Second League of Nations and began drawing up plans for a transatlantic expedition into the Americas. The League of Nations consolidated their hold in Europe and Africa. However, there was a group of naval mercenaries residing in the USS Excalibur, an experimental flagship from the 2030s. These mercenaries were fleeing from what was considered a harbinger of doom on the other side of the Atlantic, and the League of Nations was more cautious in their transatlantic expedition. Upon reaching the ruins of St. John's, the expedition quickly discovered what the mercenaries were fleeing from. A mysterious, hive-mind-like force stretching from the southern tip of Argentina to the snowy steppes of Canada, known solely by the name the Assimilators. A war was soon waged between the League of Nations and the Assimilators, during which the foundation of Geneva was destroyed by the Assimilators' invasion of Western Europe, and the subsequent burning of Geneva caused the majority of the master lists to be destroyed. Eventually, the League of Nations triumphed, but the cohesion once found in a united front against the face of annihilation was lost with the master lists, leaving the myriad of warlords to pick up the torch. It is now 2450 AD, the post-Ashen Age. By 2450, the world was reclaimed, but fragmented with the shadow of the Assimilators still looming over the League of Nations. No one can tell what lies ahead, for the future is on a precipice. It is here that our story begins.